The story of Silk Road begins with a young man named Ross Ulbricht, who had a strong belief in freedom and personal choice. He was intelligent and curious, and he spent a lot of time thinking about how the world works. He studied physics and economics, but his real interest was in ideas about liberty. He believed that people should be free to make their own decisions without too much control from governments. This belief slowly shaped the path he would take in life. As the internet continued to grow, Ross saw it as more than just a tool for communication. He saw it as a way to build a new kind of society, one where people could interact freely and privately. During this time, Ross became interested in the hidden parts of the internet. Most people use the normal web, where websites are easy to find and access. But there is another part, often called the dark web, where identities are hidden and activity is harder to trace. This hidden space attracted Ross because it offered privacy and anonymity. He learned about tools like Tor, which allowed users to browse without revealing who they were or where they were located. To Ross, this technology was powerful. It meant people could connect and trade without being watched. He started thinking deeply about what could be built in such an environment. At the same time, a new form of digital money was gaining attention. This was Bitcoin, a currency that existed only online and did not depend on banks. Transactions could be made directly between people, and it was difficult to trace them back to real identities. This was exactly the kind of system Ross believed in. He saw Bitcoin as a key piece of his idea, something that could support a free and private marketplace. With Tor providing anonymity and Bitcoin enabling payments, he realized he had the tools he needed to build something new. In 2011, Ross decided to act on his ideas. He created a website that he called Silk Road, inspired by the ancient trade routes that connected different parts of the world. But this version was completely digital and hidden from the public internet. On this platform, users could buy and sell goods without revealing who they were. At first, the site was small and unknown. Only a few people found it, mostly through online forums. But those who discovered it were interested in what it offered. The system was simple. Sellers could list items, buyers could purchase them, and both sides could leave reviews. This created a sense of trust, even though no one knew each other's real identity. As time passed, the site began to grow slowly. More users joined, and more listings appeared. While Ross may have imagined a free market for all kinds of goods, it quickly became clear what people wanted most. And many sellers began offering illegal products, especially drugs. This changed the nature of the platform. It was no longer just an experiment in freedom. It was becoming something much bigger and more dangerous. Still, Ross continued to run the site under a hidden identity, believing he was creating a new kind of system. He did not fully see how far things would go, or how much attention it would soon attract. As Silk Road continued to grow, more people began to hear about it through online communities and secret forums. The idea of a hidden marketplace where people could buy and sell freely attracted many users from different parts of the world. What made the platform special was the feeling of safety it gave to its users. Buyers did not have to meet sellers in person, and sellers did not have to worry about being seen. Everything was done online, through encrypted systems that made tracking very difficult. Because of this, more and more people joined the platform every day, and Silk Road slowly turned into a large and active marketplace. One of the key features that helped Silk Road grow was its review system. Just like normal shopping websites, buyers could rate sellers and leave feedback about their products. This created a level of trust between strangers. A seller with good reviews would attract more buyers, while a seller with bad reviews would struggle to make sales. This system made the marketplace feel organized and professional, even though it was dealing with illegal goods. In many ways, it looked and functioned like Amazon, but hidden from the public and focused on items that could not be sold legally in most places. The most common products on Silk Road were drugs. Sellers offered a wide range of substances, including marijuana, cocaine, heroin, and other drugs that were usually sold on the streets. However, many users believed that Silk Road was safer than traditional drug dealing. There was less violence, and transactions were handled through the website instead of face-to-face meetings. Packages were shipped discreetly through the mail, making it harder for authorities to detect them. This new method of selling drugs changed how illegal trade worked and made Silk Road even more popular. Behind the scenes, Ross Ulbricht was managing everything under the fake name Dread Pirate Roberts. This name gave him a mysterious identity and helped hide who he really was. He communicated with users, solved disputes, and made decisions about how the site should run. As the creator and operator, he also earned money from every transaction made on the platform. Over time, this added up to a huge amount of profit. Silk Road was not just an idea anymore. It had become a powerful business. At its peak, the site had thousands of listings and users from many countries. Millions of dollars were being exchanged using Bitcoin, making it one of the largest underground marketplaces in the world. However, this rapid growth also brought attention. Law enforcement agencies began to notice unusual activity linked to the site. They realized that Silk Road was not just a small hidden website, but a major platform for illegal trade. Even though Ross believed he was safe because of the technology he used, the growing size of Silk Road made it harder to stay hidden. The more people joined, the higher the risk became. Problems also started appearing inside the platform, including scams and attempts by hackers to break into the system. Ross had to deal with these challenges while trying to keep the site running smoothly. At this point, Silk Road was no longer just a simple project. It had turned into a complex and risky operation that was beginning to attract serious attention from powerful authorities. As Silk Road continued to expand, the environment around it started to change in a dangerous way. What once felt like a controlled and organized marketplace slowly became harder to manage. More users meant more problems, and not everyone followed the rules. Some sellers began to cheat buyers by sending low-quality products or nothing at all, while some buyers tried to scam sellers by falsely claiming they never received their orders. These issues created tension inside the platform, and disputes became more common. Ross Ulbricht spent a lot of time trying to solve these problems, but the growing size of the marketplace made it difficult to keep everything under control. At the same time, new threats began to appear. Hackers started targeting Silk Road, hoping to break into the system and steal money or information. These attacks made Ross more worried about the safety of the platform. He had built Silk Road to be secure, but he now realized that no system was completely safe. He became more careful and secretive, trusting very few people. The pressure of running such a large and risky operation began to affect him. He was no longer just managing a website. He was dealing with constant threats from both inside and outside the platform. One of the most serious problems came when someone tried to blackmail him. This person claimed they had access to important information and threatened to expose the identities of Silk Road users if they were not paid. This situation was very dangerous because it could destroy everything Ross had built. If users lost trust in the platform's privacy, Silk Road would collapse. Faced with this threat, Ross made decisions that would later become one of the most controversial parts of the story. According to investigators, he attempted to hire people to deal with those who were threatening him. These actions showed how much the situation had escalated and how far things had moved away from his original idea of a free marketplace. While all this was happening, law enforcement agencies were quietly working in the background. They were studying Silk Road carefully, trying to understand how it operated. Even though the platform used advanced tools like Tor and Bitcoin to hide identities, investigators knew that no system is perfect. They began looking for small mistakes that could lead them to the person behind the site. Digital systems often leave traces, and even a small error can become an important clue. This gave investigators hope that they could eventually uncover the truth. Ross, however, continued running Silk Road daily, believing that he was still hidden. He communicated with users under his alias and made important decisions about the platform. But the stress kept building. He had to deal with scammers, hackers, and threats, all while trying to avoid being discovered by authorities. The situation was becoming more intense, and the risks were growing every day. What started as an idea about freedom and privacy had turned into something much more dangerous. Silk Road was no longer just an experiment. It had become a high-stakes operation where one mistake could bring everything crashing down. As the pressure inside Silk Road kept growing, the investigation from law enforcement agencies also became stronger and more focused. The platform had become too large to ignore, and authorities wanted to find the person behind it. The Federal Bureau of Investigation, along with other agencies, began working together to track down the hidden operator. They knew it would not be easy because Silk Road was built to protect identities using advanced tools. However, they also understood that even the most careful person can make small mistakes, and those mistakes can lead to big discoveries. Investigators started by looking at early traces of the website. They searched through old internet forums and posts where Silk Road might have been mentioned. During this process, they found something important. Before Silk Road became popular, Ross Ulbricht had posted online asking questions about creating a marketplace website. These posts were linked to an email address that could be connected back to him. This was one of the first clues that helped investigators begin building a case. It showed that even before the site was fully developed, there were signs pointing to its creator. At the same time, authorities worked on tracking the technical side of the platform. They tried to locate the servers that hosted Silk Road. This was difficult because the site was hidden behind layers of protection, but with time and effort, they managed to identify important details about how the system worked. They also studied the flow of Bitcoin used on the site. Even though Bitcoin is designed to offer privacy, transactions are still recorded on a public system called the blockchain. By analyzing these transactions carefully, investigators were able to follow patterns and connect different activities together. While all this was happening, Ross was living what looked like a normal life on the outside. He moved to San Francisco, where he spent a lot of time working on his laptop. He often worked in public places like cafes and libraries, believing that he was safe because no one knew his true identity. He continued to manage Silk Road under the name Dread Pirate Roberts, responding to messages and overseeing the platform's operations. However, he did not realize that investigators were getting closer to him with each passing day. The authorities knew they needed the right moment to arrest him. It was not enough to simply take him into custody. They needed clear evidence that he was actively running Silk Road. This meant they had to catch him while he was logged into the system. If he closed his laptop or encrypted his data, it could become much harder to prove his role. Because of this, the timing of the arrest was very important. Agents watched his movements carefully and waited for the perfect opportunity. In October 2013, that moment finally came. Ross was sitting in a public library, focused on his laptop. At that exact time, he was logged into Silk Road and actively managing the site. FBI agents created a distraction nearby to take his attention away for a few seconds. As soon as he looked away, they quickly moved in and grabbed his laptop before he could close it. This allowed them to capture the evidence they needed. Ross was arrested on the spot, and the person behind Silk Road was finally revealed. What had once been a hidden identity was now exposed, marking a major turning point in the story. After the arrest of Ross Ulbricht, the case quickly became one of the most talked about cybercrime trials in the world. Many people were shocked that a single individual had been running such a large and secret marketplace. The government prepared strong charges against him, claiming that he was the creator and main operator of Silk Road. They argued that he had built and managed a platform that allowed illegal goods to be sold across the world. Because of the size and impact of the website, the case was treated very seriously from the beginning. During the trial, prosecutors presented a large amount of evidence to prove their claims. One of the most important pieces was the laptop that had been taken at the time of his arrest. It contained messages, records, and data that connected Ross directly to the Silk Road website. There were chat logs where he communicated with users under the name Dread Pirate Roberts, giving instructions and making decisions about the platform. These messages showed that he was deeply involved in running the site. In addition, investigators presented records of Bitcoin transactions that were linked to Silk Road and connected back to him. Another major part of the trial focused on the more serious accusations against him. Prosecutors claimed that Ross had tried to hire people to harm individuals who threatened the platform. These claims were based on digital conversations and records found during the investigation. And while these alleged actions were not charged in the main trial, they still influenced how people viewed the case. They suggested that the situation around Silk Road had become extremely serious and dangerous. This shocked many observers and added to the tension in the courtroom. Ross's defense team tried to challenge the government's case. They argued that while he may have created Silk Road, he was not necessarily the person running it the entire time. According to them, other individuals could have taken control of the site and used the same identity. They also raised concerns about how the investigation was handled. It was revealed that some law enforcement officers involved in the case had acted improperly during the investigation, including mishandling funds connected to the platform. This raised questions about fairness and whether all the evidence had been collected in the right way. Despite these arguments, the evidence presented by the prosecution was strong. The jury listened to weeks of testimony and carefully reviewed the information provided. In 2015, the final decision was made. Ross Ulbricht was found guilty on multiple charges related to running Silk Road, including drug trafficking and conspiracy. The judge later gave him a very severe sentence: life in prison without the possibility of parole. This meant he would spend the rest of his life behind bars. The sentence sparked strong reactions from the public. Some people believed it was justified because of the scale of illegal activity connected to Silk Road. Others felt it was too harsh, especially since the platform was non-violent in its structure and relied on online transactions rather than direct physical conflict. The case raised important questions about crime, punishment, and the role of technology in society. It showed how one idea, when taken too far, could lead to serious consequences that would affect a person's entire life. After the trial ended and Ross Ulbricht was sent to prison, many people believed that the story of Silk Road was over. However, the impact of the platform did not disappear. Even though the original website was shut down, the idea behind it continued to live on. Other hidden marketplaces soon appeared on the dark web, trying to copy what Silk Road had done. These new platforms used similar systems, including anonymous browsing through Tor and payments with Bitcoin. This showed that while one website could be stopped, the technology and demand behind it were still very strong. At the same time, law enforcement agencies around the world learned a lot from the Silk Road case. They improved their methods for tracking online criminal activity and became more skilled at investigating the dark web. Governments began investing more resources into cybercrime units, understanding that crime was no longer limited to physical spaces. Many of the new marketplaces that appeared after Silk Road were quickly discovered and shut down. This created an ongoing battle between those trying to create hidden online markets and those trying to stop them. The story of Silk Road also had a major effect on how people viewed digital privacy and freedom. Some people argued that the platform showed the importance of privacy tools and the right to operate freely online. Others believed it proved that too much freedom without control could lead to serious harm. This debate continues even today, as technology keeps evolving and new systems are created. The case forced society to think more deeply about how the internet should be used and what limits, if any, should exist. Another important impact of Silk Road was the rise in awareness of cryptocurrency. Before this case, many people had never heard of Bitcoin or did not fully understand how it worked. After Silk Road became widely known, Bitcoin gained attention across the world. Some people saw it as a powerful new financial system, while others were concerned about how it could be used for illegal activities. Over time, Bitcoin became more accepted and is now used for many legal purposes, but its connection to Silk Road remains an important part of its history. Meanwhile, Ross Ulbricht's situation continued to attract attention. There are still people who support him and believe his sentence was too harsh. They argue that he was trying to create a system based on his beliefs about freedom, even if it led to unintended consequences. Campaigns have been created calling for his sentence to be reduced or for him to be released. On the other hand, many people believe that the punishment was fair because of the scale of illegal activity connected to Silk Road and the risks it created. In the end, the story of Silk Road is not just about one person or one website. It is about how powerful ideas can grow and change in unexpected ways. What started as an experiment in freedom turned into a global marketplace that challenged laws and systems around the world. It showed both the potential and the dangers of technology, reminding people that every innovation can be used in different ways. The legacy of Silk Road continues to influence the internet today, making it one of the most important and complex stories in the history of the digital world.